Hey, Dave.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Look at that. The sun is starting to
Good
shine.
morning. Wake the fuck up. Let's go.
There you go. There's one.
Oh, yeah, right. Ding. Okay.
So, I mean, not only does Dave not supply us with a title, so Dave's a great friend. Dave's been with the festival for about 6 years. Thank you, sir. But he's really, if you're an organizer of an event, he's really a shitty speaker. Not as a speaker, but he's shitty to manage. So not only did he not give us a title, nor did he prepare anything, he calls me yesterday at 8 o'clock at night and says, I'm not prepared. Can you please come on stage and interview me? And so I'm not much of, very...
Actually, the real reason was my alternative was working on a presentation versus drinking with Harley and a bunch of folks last night, and I chose drinking.
There you go. So totally unprepared. So Dave, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Well,
Okay.
maybe we should start first. There's a contest going apparently where somebody's counting how many times you're going to swear. People are trying to...
I'm really happy to know that my brand is all about profanity instead of deep startup insights. That's really great.
Can you just give us a couple of seconds of swears, please?
Okay, well, how many people are fans of George Carlin? You probably have to be over the age of 30 or 40. Okay, so this is not intended to be gender specific or anything, but the 7 deadly words that you can't say on television, according to George Carlin. Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits, I believe. And according to George, tits should not be on the list because everybody loves tits, including women, I think. Anyway. Sorry, where are we going with this?
I just wanted to get you going and
Okay.
warm up a little bit. Dave,
Let's just try and get out of the way. Fuck, 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 fuck. Shit, 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 shit. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Shit, shit, shit. All right, I think somebody won. Let's go.
Okay, I hope we counted that. So actually, Dave, what I find interesting about the swearing is that I hear you swearing on stage all the time. I know there's lots of competitions that go about how many times you swear. But I know Dave. I get to hang out with him backstage. I get to hang out with him sometimes, after hours. And you really don't swear. So my question for you here is, why is there a difference between the Dave that people don't know and the Dave that people know?
I guess I've tried to build a public brand as an asshole so that when people meet me, they're surprised that I'm not quite much of an asshole in person. It's an interesting trick.
Okay, so now that you've got zero credibility, give us some of your credibility. I mean, give me some of your numbers. 500 startups is huge, obviously, but tell me how many countries are you in? How many investments have you made? What's the size of the deals you do? Stuff of that sort.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I don't know. This is the brag part. We've made a lot of investments, I guess. Just over 1,000. So 1,500 across 60 countries, something like that. A few of them work.
Should we expect a 500 startups prime, or?
I think when we started, the intent was to come up with a name and a story that people thought was crazy, and actually people laughed when we first introduced ourselves as 500 startups. They would actually laugh at us because they thought that was silly. And now we've actually done 3 times that number, and people are like, oh, aren't you going to change the name? And I'm like, no, it's not really a counter, it's a brand. But I think, rather than just like rattling off the stats, I think maybe, understanding why we do a lot of investments. So the reality of the situation is most startups fail, and at least according to the data from our investments over the last 6 years, and maybe my personal investments for another 5 or 6 years, probably about 20 to 30% of our startups might get to some kind of positive exit. Probably less than 10% of those will have a meaningful economic return that's, say, more than 5 to 10x. And really probably only maybe 2% will have a meaningful return that's more like 50 to 100x the bullshit that people talk about as unicorns. So for us, we probably aren't comfortable with a portfolio of less than 100 investments if we're starting at seed stage in order to see predictable economic returns. And our job, is to make money for our investors. So much as we want to help all entrepreneurs, we are trying to make money at what we're doing.
So that's a good segue into the, the top tier companies, the unicorns. You had a recent, company that went public, Twilio. For those who haven't heard it.
That was our very first IPO, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I did not. The thanks should go to Jeff Lawson and his team. I just got lucky to put some money into the fucking company. VCs should never be taking credit for their company's success. That's just like ridiculously arrogant and presumptive.
My congratulations wasn't to you for Twilio, but rather congratulations to you for your limited partners.
Right. Yeah, but I think also, like, our goal is not to necessarily, brag about unicorns or find unicorns. I think, what we're trying to do is find people who can build, companies and provide jobs and provide some kind of economic, output for both, themselves and for customers. And like the target for us is probably people who can build, I don't know, a $10 million revenue business and employ 100 people. That's kind of like a reasonable measure of success. Those businesses might be worth maybe between, say, I don't know, $25 to $200 million. That's probably a more realistic target for us, and I think that happens about 5% of the time, maybe between 5 to 10% of the time. So that's still not frequent, but that's probably more common than the unicorn story.
So, I mean, there's certainly lots of people here. You've been here for 5 of our 6 years, and I thank you for that. But there's lots of people here that want to get your attention, and they certainly want to know what can they do to impress you. So what do you look for, when Twilio is before they're big and before they start to do their big? What are you looking for? What should these people be impressing you with?
I guess the first answer to that question is you probably shouldn't be trying to pitch me, because I'm not making much of the investment decisions these days. I'm mostly doing fundraising and bullshit, talking head shit like this, but. Our team, we have about 125 people spread across 20 different countries. About 30 or 35 of those are making investment decisions, and folks here running 500 Canada are probably the right people to talk to, or our accelerator teams. In general, what we're looking for is functional product, early customer usage and revenue, hopefully some semblance of a team that might only be 2 people. We do occasionally fund individual founders, but that's rare. And really, it's hard to predict like what's going to be successful. Mostly we're just looking for evidence that you're not completely fucking stupid and that you've been able to execute on something. And so mostly if you've been able to get past, a concept and build something, and really past building something to having something people use or pay for, those are the metrics that we'd like to look for. And then, is there a scalable strategy to that works? A lot of people come up and say, hey, what do you think of my product? Or my product is awesome. And usually, I think they're kind of full of shit, and they're asking me the wrong question, which is not like, what do I think of your product, but what do your customers think of your product? And how can you show me that? How can you show me objective, quantifiable evidence, not subjective, qualitative evidence? I just listened to a pitch from an entrepreneur about an hour ago, and he spent about 80% of the time pitching me on the product and telling me why he thought it was awesome. My product's great, it's awesome. Don't you want to invest? I'm like, no, because I think you're bullshit, lying sack of shit. No, it was actually an interesting product, but I don't want to know that you or your mom think your product are awesome. I want to know that your customers think your product is awesome, and the objective evidence of that is that they're using our product and paying for it. And so, in general, people pitch me on, here's my idea, here's my product, here's what I'm going to do, which is all forward-looking, subjective guesswork, instead of, here's what my customers think, here are my metrics, this is what I have done, historical, backwards, quantitative evidence. And that's kind of it.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Let's talk a little bit about the international front. I set down a challenge to Y Combinator, and I told them that Dave McClure wanted to debate them on stage.
Sam's never going to take that bet.
They feared you. They said, no, out of the question, we will not do that. So this is your opportunity to tell us why 500 Startups is so much better than Y Combinator, and they don't get a rebuttal.
I'm not sure that that's true. I think YC has done a fantastic job. They are definitely, PG and Sam and the other folks at YC have built a tremendous brand. They've invested in over 1,000 companies as well, and they're the big gorilla on the hill. I think it's tough being number 2 to number 1 and sort of feeling like I'm Seabiscuit all the fucking time. or I'm Pepsi. How many people watch Seabiscuit? Have you ever seen that movie? It's fucking amazing. I would like really inspirational. Watch that shit. Or actually, you probably will hate this one, but actually, Justin Bieber, Never Say Never. Like really, it's actually pretty good.
Okay, look, I think you're being way too nice, and that's fine if you don't want to bash them. I accept that. But then why don't you tell us what the difference is?
Okay, right.
Okay,
Sure.
So
I will say what's different. Probably what's different between, if you look at YC and Techstars and us, those are probably the three sort of global programs that focused on Accelerator. Difference for us would be really strong emphasis on customer acquisition, online marketing, and growth. And they both also do that, but I would say we have a team of about 15 people that do nothing but that, and that's our primary emphasis and differentiation. International and diversity, and again, they both also go after that. YC started recruiting a lot more internationally since Sam came on board, and also started recruiting more women and people of color. Techstars, pretty international, Europe. I sound like I'm pitching my competitors, right?
Yeah, a little bit. You're supposed to do the opposite.
But I would say we've been making investments internationally for most of the 6 years we've been in operations. About a third of our investments are outside the US or started outside the US, so over 500 companies. About a third of our team wasn't born in the US and doesn't live in the US. We speak about 25 languages, and we don't require that you move to Silicon Valley in order for us to invest in you, which is probably the primary difference, I would say, between us and YC at least.
Okay, cool. And so 500 startups is announced, or soon to announce that they're here.
Actually, the other thing is just a big emphasis on education and community and content. And again, I would say they also do that, but we try and do that more so if possible, and make a lot of our content and video and everything available online.
I also would have expected you to say something about diversity. I find that 500 startups has a fantastic brand when it comes to being diverse in all senses.
Yeah, because two white guys up here talking about diversity and inclusion is fucking great, right?
But still, honestly, yes, we are two white guys here on stage, and that's nothing I can do about that now. I'm short, and so maybe that puts me in a minority.
We've done a fair amount there. Right? We hired a woman named Monique Woodard. Go Monique. She's working on a fund that'll be emphasizing Black and Hispanic entrepreneurs and the Black and Hispanic market in the U.S., which is 30% of the market, and definitely underfunded. And we've made investments in African American entrepreneurs and certainly Hispanic entrepreneurs, but we probably are still way under indexed for population and market. And we think we're going to make a lot of fucking money. And so, like most of that diversity mission, the international mission, the diversity mission, is not necessarily because we're wonderful, good Samaritan, lovely people. It's because of the fucking money, yes. Because betting on diversity is a cash flow positive bet that's gonna pay off. And because, people make fucking money. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Good
stuff. So we're greedy, fucking, blood-sucking venture capitalists who just wanna make goddamn money and invest at low prices in under-arbitraged women and diversity. Sorry about that.
So you're taking advantage of minorities,
yes.
Is what you're saying. Fantastic. Beautiful.
Arbitraging racism and sexism for our own selfish fucking benefit globally.
Okay, now you're one of the only global funds, so you go internationally. My question here is with regards to Canada. Do you think that
because Canada is so global, geez, wow.
Well, compared to say being in the U.S. all alone, yes.
Slightly more diverse, yes.
And so my question is, do you find that Canada and Canadian companies and investing in Canada, is it a bargain for you? Is there a reason why you're in Canada?
I don't know if it's a bargain. I mean, I think probably valuations are slightly lower in Canada than certainly lower than in Silicon Valley. Relative to the rest of the U.S., maybe slightly, a little bit. The primary reason is because there's talent. I think if we look at, Montreal, Waterloo, Vancouver, Calgary, a few other places, we think there's, talented entrepreneurs here, and there's probably not very many venture capitalists. So I think as much as there are, great investors here, I think, Boris Wirtz, Real Ventures, a bunch of other folks that do great investing. There's not nearly as many investors as there are entrepreneurs of talent, and so again, we're greedy fucking bastards about trying to invest in talent here that's maybe underpriced and wants to have a connection to the Valley.
Okay, cool. And so you're announcing 500 Startups Canada. Sanjay's here in the audience somewhere.
500 Can.
500 Can.
Not to be confused with 500 Can, which is a different business.
And what's the expectation? You know, what do you hope to get out of the team here in Canada?
I think we've done about 40 investments in Canada over the last 5 years or so. We'd like to do more like 20 to 30 investments a year in Canada. So that team will be here in Montreal, in Vancouver, in Toronto and Waterloo, and probably a few other places, I think Calgary also. But we'd like to find talented entrepreneurs here. Again, probably companies that have functional product, users, maybe customer revenue in the order of $10,000 to $50,000 a month if we can find it. But you know, we want to make a lot of investments in Canadian entrepreneurs.
Cool. We have about 30 seconds left, so I'm gonna ask you. You know, either is there a talent you can show us on stage, Dave, that you've never done,
A talent
or
on stage.
or is there something that we classically would know about you that people would be very interested in hearing about?
Geez, I don't know. We're teaching a class on venture capital at Stanford in Silicon Valley at the end of July. It's kind of fucking expensive, but we do have some scholarships available. So if you're a rich person who would like to learn how not to lose all the money you're going to invest in startups, you should come talk to us.
Okay. Well, I was expecting you to pull money out of my ear, but I guess that's not going to happen. Dave, I'm going to thank you because I'm being told that that's it. We're out of time.
Get the fuck off stage.
Get the fuck off stage. Thank you very much, Dave.
Good luck to all of you folks.
Enjoy.